Welcome to another episode of Wrestling Tonight, covering all things pro wrestling. As always, live from No Sale Studios, I'm the Ace of Tavern, Acefield Retro, and joined on this Monday evening by the one bad Chad himself. What's going on, man?
Not a whole lot. Big weekend ahead. Got a lot to preview, a lot to talk about the fallout. So yeah, I'm ready, man. Let's jump into it.
Dude, it's crazy. And it's so insane how fast the news cycle goes in pro wrestling, where just a week ago, so much has changed. There's been, last week was one of the more, and of course we'll talk about it, one of the heaviest weeks in pro wrestling history. I don't think we ever had a loss like that back to back. Still reeling from it, really. And the other wrestling news feels secondary. When I went live on Impact to talk about what was going on to preview Emergence, it just felt like so hollow after the Bray Wyatt news dropped that night. And the show must go on, but man, I'm still reeling from that news of Funk and Bray Wyatt.
Yeah, I am too. Any other week, those would be our big stories. But, having spoken with you about it, I feel like Raw Down, if you guys can catch Raw Down on Thursdays at 8 p.m. on our YouTube channel. They did a bang up job talking about Bray and Terry Funk. If you want to go deep into that and just talk about their careers, what they gave to the business, and the significance of both of those losses to the wrestling community, go check out Raw Down. I thought they did a really good in-depth discussion about that and honored those guys well. We're going to briefly touch on it in our quick hitters, but there's so many big events that, they kind of dominated our big stories.
Yeah, and I want to just say, again, echo what you were just saying about the Raw Down crew, because you got to keep in mind, those dudes went live a mere hour from finding out that news, and it was like a kick to the gut for all of us. And it was tough for me to go on 3 hours later talking about Impact, and there isn't enough words to say it. It functioned for me as a therapeutic session for all the wrestling community, and kudos to those dudes, Marco, J-Bone, and Young Anthony, for going on there. They always crush on the Raw Down, but just having that to pivot towards, they did a great job of paying tribute to both Bray and Terry Funk's life.
Absolutely. And peek behind the curtain, like you said, it was about an hour and maybe 15 minutes before that show went live. The news dropped about Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda. We were all heartbroken about it. And there was an entire program that those dudes had in store to deliver a lot of talking points. Edge saying goodbye to the WWE universe. And they had to table all of that because we felt necessary to, go right into what is on everyone's mind. Graphics were changed. Anthony did a bang up job bringing in some overlays into the show. So hats off to those guys for really sticking the landing on something that was just thrown in their lap. That's no one wants to talk about. And I thought those guys did a great job.
Yeah, and again, they did such a good job that I feel like we just need to kind of just point you in the direction of listening to them talk about it. Go watch it, listen to it on wherever you can find podcasts. And yeah, it's just furthering emphasis of sometimes things like this happen, and you got to appreciate the life. Those in your life, hug them tight, man, because it's just so fleeting.
Absolutely. 36, Terry was sad enough, and that's a guy who lived a long, illustrious, event-filled life and career, and then but 36, it made Brody Lee pop up in my head because it felt so similar, a career being cut down way too short, and I think everyone's still reeling from that. So
it was very reminiscent of the Brian Pillman stuff, and when I looked at the ages too, Pillman was 35 and Bray was 36, and yeah, and heart issues for both those dudes. And it just was like, you wonder what could have been. And I think for Bray Wyatt, we're going to sit here and wonder what could have been, because I think he had so much more to give creatively in the wrestling business and elsewhere too. That's the other thing. He had his hand in the horror films type of stuff. His creativity knew no bounds. That's the thing with him. And I think his legend's only going to grow over time, because he had this second run that a lot of people were kind of questioning booking and that aside, but I think he had the chance to really get in front of the fans and understand how appreciated he was. Because I still go back to that promo where he cuts that heartfelt promo after returning, and listening to those words now, it's kind of eerie. And to hear him in that room, in that ring with the lights off, and man, just he was speaking from the heart, and he felt the love from the fans. And I'm glad he got to feel that in some packed arenas on this last final run for him, which he didn't know was the final one for him.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I think I was in the comments on the Raw Down section, and I kind of said that he always felt like a caged bird to me. Like he had so much creativity to give that his creativity kind of transcended the confines of what wrestling storytelling can allow you to do. And dabbling in the film industry, I think that was a place where he could have really came into his own as far as being able to tap into that, just the scope of his creativity. But unfortunately, in pro wrestling, you are kind of boxed in. So he always kind of felt like a caged bird that never really got to truly fly and soar to his true potential. But what we saw of him in wrestling, I mean, he will go down as one of those iconic figures that loom over history to come.
Yeah, and there's no easy transition, but let's get into our big stories and talk about what a weekend of wrestling in England.
Big stories. Story 1.
Story number 1 here. We had All In from Wembley Stadium. The lead up to this event felt like it has been eternity. We're finally there to see the pomp and circumstance and all the pageantry that was Wembley Stadium, filled up with over 80,000 people. 8135 is what the actual number was from TK. What a night. Before we get into breaking it down, just your initial impressions on watching this, Chad. And obviously an early start. It was nice to pop on the TV at 1 p.m. and the pre-show, the buy-in was 12 p.m. The whole thing felt to me enormous and almost better presentation than I thought they ever could have pulled off.
Yeah, I mean, Sneed showed up at our door at 10 till noon with pizzas, and it felt weird being ready for a pro wrestling show that early, and it felt big going into it. A lot of excitement. I'm with you. The set at first, when I saw the set, I'm like, oh man, I was wanting something a little more extravagant from a stage layout. But as I saw the night go on and the way they used it, I thought it was great. I thought it looked epic. Just the layout, the ring, it was almost surreal to me. I found myself like it there were moments where I had to kind of pinch myself that, hey, I'm watching an AEW show, because it felt like a mania just from seeing all those fans and the top tiers of that stadium that we've yet to see fans that deep at an AEW show. It was pretty incredible, man, just to see the scope of the show. I was blown away by it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And all the sentiments that you just said there was the fans were on top of the action. It was a legit 81K in the building. You can feel all the energy from them. Felt like a WrestleMania for lack of comparison. I mean, we have nothing else to compare it to on that sheer scale of an event. And before we get into that, I mean, we have two pieces of news from that, aside from the action in the ring. We have them right now. They are the holder of the attendance record for 81,035, which they referred to as a quote, a new worldwide record at a pro wrestling event, and ticket revenue exceeded $10 million at the gate. So we saw him go to the bank and buy the rights to, and we'll talk about some of the songs and the licensing he decided to go for. He went for the kill with that kind of stuff. But their third ever stadium show, obviously Grand Slam took place at Arthur Ashe, but this was 8 times what they were able to put in that building. And at this point, we're going to have discussions about the records, and that doesn't matter to me. I don't care who holds the record. The fact that a company outside of WWE was able to pull this off, to have the perspective of just, 2018 was the first All In where they were challenged by Dave Meltzer on Twitter on a bet that they wouldn't be able to put a fraction of that many people in a building without the promotion on top of them. It was unreal. Like you said, I had to pinch myself for where pro wrestling came in the last 4 or 5 years. It's insane to me because for a reference, WCW never did this. Of course, They did the Georgia Dome for Nitro. They never were able to run an event for the hottest of hot as they were unable to do that. TNA never did it. So sitting there now and watching what AEW has accomplished in such a short period of time, people need to take this seriously of how important it really was.
Yeah, when they made that bet with Meltzer, it was 10,000. He bet they couldn't fill 10,000. They do 81,000. And just to put that in perspective with WCW, I know WCW with the fallout, the 20 years since they've left us, 20 plus years since they left us, there's been kind of a stink that's attached to that company when fans talk about, especially fans that didn't grow up with WCW, fans that are just watching on the network or going back and hearing the historians talk about it. There's a stink that's on that company, especially with the last 2 years. But put this into perspective. When Hollywood Hogan and the NWO were running roughshod, winning every week in the ratings, they were the hottest act in pro wrestling. They were hotter than anything WWF at the time had to give. It was the number one wrestling company in the world at that time, and they didn't even run something this size. And this is a company a little more than 4 years into it, and they just sold out Wembley Stadium in London. That is absolutely unreal. And I'm with you, Ace. I don't care about records. Records are meant to be broken. WWE will break this record with a WrestleMania, no doubt. Who cares? It's all about a company that doesn't reside in Stamford, Connecticut, being able to pull off something like this. And the fact that there's a company that can pull off something like this benefits us, the fans, but most importantly, it benefits the pro wrestlers, where now they can have that dream of wrestling in front of this many eyes without being under the thumb of the Fed.
Yeah, and I think as the confetti had cleared from this event, they wasted no time letting us know they're going to be running it back next year. So we have this to look forward to. August 25th, 2024, they're returning to Wembley. So they're putting all their chips back in the middle of the table, to use a euphemism from them, double or nothing for this. Yeah. And this is something that, they want to be taken seriously in the same level. And Tony Khan's scrum was so interesting, and there wasn't a lot of drama that came from that.
Extremely interesting.
It's so interesting to hear Tony Khan out there. And he was pretty transparent for Tony Khan, who usually is a guy who hedges his conversation. He was pretty transparent about a lot of things. And one of the things he was saying, and we were referencing WCW, he's talking about the hole that was in the wrestling industry for 20 years without WCW in it. And he wants to fill that hole. And I think I could say categorically he has. And the relationship with New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's taking that on, not to mention being not just a secondary promotion. He wants to be not just a challenger brand. He wants to be an alternative, to the point where people are looking at both stages. WrestleMania is one of the things that WWE has that big talent wants to go to, because you can't compare it. I think at this point, WrestleMania has obviously 40 years worth of history. It's hard to replicate history, as we always say here. But now going down the line, you can offer that, as you just mentioned so beautifully. This, for a guy like MJF, he wrestled on that stage. He wrestled in front of a crowd bigger than any WrestleMania to date. And of course, they will top it. Like you said, they're going to try to they'll probably do it at Wembley themselves and top it and add more people. But to me, you can't take this away from a company of 4 years. Think about where WWF was at 4 years in. They were making waves. They were changing the way wrestling was done, but they still didn't do this. And I understand they're standing on the shoulders of giants right now. AEW had the benefit of existing in a world where WWE already paved that path, but they still walk down that path and climb the mountain themselves. And we're sitting here looking from atop the mountain, Wembley Stadium. And to me, this was more than just a pro wrestling event. This was a historical thing that over time, we're going to look at this and be like, I was there when I watched this. We're going to remember where we were watching MJF and Adam Cole raise their hands to end the show.
Regardless if the path had already been paved, that is a treacherous, difficult path to walk. Like we said, no one has done it before. That's a very hard path. And WWE has taken decades to perfect that path. And for someone, it's like a novice hiker going to the summit, going to
of Everest. Yeah, think about it that
going
like
to
that.
Everest. It's a novice hiker looking at Everest and being like, okay, that guy's hiked Everest a lot. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to give it a try. And they make it. That's pretty incredible. And just to reference Tony at the press conference, I was listening to Sam Roberts today, and he put it really well. I thought this was, I know it's a press conference and whatever. It's not like there's some performative art to it. You're essentially just there answering questions and giving us the news. But Sam Roberts talked about how this was the best he had ever seen Tony. Like, this was the most genuine, most relatable version of Tony. And I really felt like that too. Because, you know, there's a bias towards Tony. A lot of people think he's cringy. They don't like he's his dead-eyed stare, some of the little body language he has. And I get that, whatever. I've never held that against the guy, but this did seem like he let his guard down a little bit in this press conference, and he did feel very relatable to me. It didn't feel like he was speaking from a script or trying to get his talking points in. He was just being very open, and it was refreshing.
Yeah, I think it was probably a level of maybe breathing a sigh of relief that everything went off the way it was supposed to, because as we mentioned last week, there was a lot of pressure on All Elite Wrestling to make this go off and be, because you know the critics were knocking at the door waiting to laugh in his face. And we talked about this weeks ago, talking about this when Wembley was first announced, one of our initial episodes probably, where we said if they did 40,000, that would have been a great feat. And I think everyone agreed with that. Even the most starch AEW haters would have said, all right, 40,000 is no way they do that. And they did 81. And there's still people nitpicking what they did of saying, and you know what? You're never going to please everybody. I think it's just the age of everyone has their 2 cents they're able to put in with social media. You have the choice whether to read it or not. I personally choose to not read it because I just can't deal in that negativity, because how do you look at this and have any negative feelings, whether you like AEW or not, whether you like the wrestlers on the card or not? How do you not look at this as a pro wrestling win for everybody that they were able to do this, as because it's going to challenge WWE to step up their game and do bigger and better things. And we're going to get more stories that have meaning, like the Bloodline, like Judgment Day, because AEW is challenging them to remain at the top. Competition breeds success. And that's what we're getting here at AEW and WWE.
Yeah, I at this point, you can't even listen to the haters. I mean, there's some quote, I forget how it goes, but it's like bitterness or haters or whatever is just kind of the embodiment of someone with unmet needs. Like they've never done anything with themselves, so they can't allow themselves to give props to someone who did something for themselves. And you'll never hear a successful person hate on someone. A lot of times it's usually losers, so I don't really listen to them. I just like pro wrestling being successful. And they put on a banger show, man. It wasn't just the pomp and circumstance of it. It wasn't just the scale of it all, the scope of it all. It wasn't just that. This was a great show. Bell to bell, no letting up. I mean, AEW, there's not a lot of pee breaks, man. If you got to run and get some wings, refill your beer, whatever you got to do it quick, because the pace that they put these shows at is pretty impressive. There's not these, sponsorship ads in between matches. There's not these long, drawn out hype videos that we've seen. They beat into our heads the entire show. It's let's go to the action. Let's hit them over the head with it. And I thought they did that expertly.
Yeah, it was off to the races from this show. And let's start at the top. We usually go match by match, but let's talk about the MJF Adam Cole match. And I got to say, friendship prevailed. And we were talking last week, expecting someone to turn heel. We were predicting Adam Cole to walk out champion. They're extending this story. And who knows if this is the path they're originally going on. But looking at it through a lens of this is their hottest story, this is their adjacent story similar to the Bloodline that's getting eyes on the product, it makes sense to continue this down the line and create more heat. I also think it was more memorable having them both stand tall in the ring. But man, I would say it was a spirited match between the both of them. I thought they both brought the noise here. Adam Cole felt like on the level of MJF. And I think going back to where MJF was Adam Cole was just a couple of months ago, where people were writing him off as a main eventer. He felt like a big deal. He looked great in the ring. The emotion that was elicited through different parts of this match, where the internal conflict with the involvement of Roderick Strong and just the back and forth. This was on the card. This was a WWE style main event, the ones we've been seeing with the Bloodline, and the cinematic nature. I felt like tweeting or putting on Instagram, this is cinema, because it was. And maybe they're using the archetype that WWE has kind of perfected with the Bloodline, but they were doing such a good job from even the symbolism, taking the shirts off when they were ready to go to war. Like everything about this just spoke. It was masterfully done, and they built it up for such a long period of time. Has me hopeful that they'll be able to kind of weave this in and out of the card, because this might have been the first time since Hangman and Kenny Omega they've ever done a story that was this transcendent. CM Punk and MJF was very similar to that, but this had so many layers, and I don't know where they're going. I felt like we knew where those other stories were going because it was just wrestling 101. This has so many different avenues they can go down, and still to this day, coming up on Wednesday and Saturday, we don't know where it's going, and that's so beautiful.
It is their bloodline. Now, I know when you say that, you're going to get people on the left and the right side of the aisle that's going to say, but it's not as good as the bloodline. I'm not saying it's as good. I'm not saying it's worse. I'm saying this is AEW's bloodline. This is the story that for years on the flagship, me and Sneed have been saying they need a transcendent story. Am I saying at this point it's the greatest story AEW has ever told? I'm not ready to say that yet. But as far as this being a story that has legs, and the fact that they recognized it had legs, or it has legs, and they didn't pull the trigger to do the turn. Now, I was once saying Adam Cole's going to turn here. I'm so glad I was wrong. I'm so glad I mispredicted that. I want this to be drawn out. Like you said, this was a total WWE style match. We had the ref bump that takes him out. That's when Solo or Jimmy runs in and gives Roman the win. You get the ref bump. You got the ref bump. Then what happens? Roderick comes down. Roddy's out there. That is Bloodline 101. He's gonna cost MJF. And there's so many layers, like you said, to this. Now they're tag champions. I wouldn't be opposed to just them together defending those ROH tag titles at All Out. And I know a lot of people, oh no, you got to have them in a single scene somehow. No, you need to do things like that to stretch this story as long as you can. And being able to lean into those tag matches with those ROH straps, I think is a good story device to keep them together, keep the bromance going, and not always be focused on that rematch. We got to get them back in the ring for the world title. I think this was expertly done. I love the drama of it. Everyone's saying AEW needs story. This is story, man. This is story for days. This is, in my opinion, right there with the Bloodline. This is AEW's version of the Bloodline. It doesn't have the length of the Bloodline, so I'm not going to compare or contrast which one's better, but this is AEW's version of it, and I'm here for it. I want to see it continue.
Yeah, and this had me immersed watching this, of just kind of with pro wrestling's best, where you can suspend belief, where you're watching this and the physicality of the match and watching Cole take advantage of the fact that MJF had some reluctance to pull the trigger on certain things, the character development of Max, watching him, his growth since the beginning of AEW, and watching him pull out every stops, even pulled the ring out, put it back, and watching his reluctance to tombstone Adam Cole on the table. And Adam Cole had no problem doing it to him. And the brain buster that he delivered to Max on that, right in front of his mom, by the way, like perfectly done and put there with, it was a nasty bump there. And even they filled out the double clothesline thing where they both hit each other and they got a double pin there and everyone was upset. And that's how you get the better. It was the false finish of all false finishes with Bryce Remsburg. After you mentioned, he hit the, kudos to him, dude. We've seen some crazy ref bumps in AEW where this dude took a Canadian Destroyer. I know that Scott D'Amore just did this on Impact, right? But Bryce Remsburg is not a pro wrestler to be able to get, and he got kind of stacked up on his neck there.
Yeah.
Kudos to that dude for taking that bump, because that's not easy, especially watching the match and knowing like the placement, and you got to know all different spots. He had to know that spot was happening. How are you not nervous for that spot? And it's what, 35 minutes into the match where you're watching this, like he's about to take this bump, and he played his role perfectly. And even it didn't look silly either, because Adam Cole just kind of had the sweat in his eyes and he did it on instinct. But like you said, man, restarting the match where MJF big face pop saying, we're going to do this until we get a finish. And even the finish itself was reminiscent of the Bulldog versus Bret Hart, where it wasn't the same finish, but it was a quick pin, where it wasn't a decisive finish where Max hit him with the ring or Max got him in the armbar, the salt of the earth. it was just this, like, you just got him, and even heard the words from Max during the match. He's like, I got lucky. And that's where the story continues from here, where you see the edge from Adam Cole. They were planting seeds for the heel turn, but they didn't pull it yet. But maybe they just stay friends and they both have these different approaches. Because as we know, real life friendships aren't just black and white as they like to portray them on TV.
Yeah, man. And I know a lot of people were kind of critiquing that Adam Cole asked for 5 more minutes. They're like, well, no, just ask to finish the match, ask to restart the match, and don't put a time limit on yourself. But I get why they do it, because it's a callback to the first time they met for the world title, and MJF wouldn't give him the extra minutes. And this time they go to MJF. You're thinking he's going to say no, and he's like, no, we're not. You're not getting 5. We're going until there's a finish in fucking Wembley. It was so great. I love this match. I love that it continues the story. It's exciting, man. I'm really, really intrigued to see where this goes, how it unfolds. And I want to see him milk it for all it's worth, because I think MJF was coronated as a legit top guy. If you didn't think he was a top guy, he's the man. He is the future of this company, bar none. There's no one else there, in my opinion. It's him at the top. And Adam Cole, for a lot of fans that were down on him when he came in, and it felt like rehashed Undisputed Era stuff. He had that bad lights out match with Orange Cassidy that fans were hypercritical of. Getting nitpicked about his size, his star power. Dude, stop with the critiques. The guy, this felt like a big match. When they lowered those lights and Justin Roberts did the announcement before this match, I felt it felt like it had a big fight feel to me.
Yeah, I think this was the biggest fight feel since Omega Danielson. There's been other matches that felt big, but this, because of the sheer nature of the event with 81K watching and how invested they were in the story, you couldn't have asked for a better presentation for a first-time person watching AEW. Maybe they tuned in because of the sheer size of the crowd. But man, top guys, both of them, and it speaks volumes about where AEW's at this point, where MJF, it's not like they took it and they have, all these ex-WWE guys, big nostalgia acts in the main event. Like, all right, they sold out 81,000 people at an arena, but it's doing it on the back of Goldberg and people's like their rose-colored glasses of nostalgia. This is a homegrown guy, 27, 28 years old. And Adam Cole, where I'm looking at him, he's not an ex-WWE guy to me. He is he's cut from the same cloth as the Bucks. And I'm sorry, he did a stop in NXT, but he's not an ex-WWE guy. His star power was built way before that. It just was emphasized a little bit during NXT, but he was already a made man when he got to NXT. So I don't want to hear that shit that they based it on Adam Cole being an ex-WWE guy. He's just not.
No,
you're not
he's
paying
a Ring of
attention.
Honor guy. I mean, let's be honest. He's a
and
Ring
New
of Honor
Japan,
guy.
like to me.
Yeah.
And he's a guy who made himself. He was just as much self-made as the Bucks, as Kenny Omega, guys that kind of did that path. He just happened to land in NXT because Triple H is a big fan of that style. But
yeah, and we see what WWE thought of him. If he was a WWE guy, he would have been on the main roster. But Vince wanted to shave his head and make him be a manager to Keith Lee. I mean, come on.
Yeah,
he's not a WWE guy. And
I couldn't have asked for a better presentation of the AEW product on that stage. This most meaningful story we have going right now, and just the investment of the crowd really helped. And I understand they're England and they are lauded in their presentation of just being very energetic, but it was a long night of wrestling. It did have a good pace to it, but they were still up for this final match and they were loud until the final bell, man. This was excellent stuff. And we had some other great action, man. Let's go to Stadium Stampede and talk about what was a wild and violent, absolute bloodbath with a different presentation. You and I were speaking last week about Stadium Stampede. Why would they do this? Some of that's cinematic. They definitely changed the approach. This just had a no holds barred, anarchy in the arena type of feel. They just called the Stadium Stampede because Wembley Stadium happens to be one of the most famous stadiums of all time. But BCC with Moxley, Claudio, and Wheeler Yuta, plus Santana and Ortiz, taking on Orange Cassidy, Eddie Kingston, Best Friends, and Penta El Cerro Miedo. This match was fun, dude. And what I really liked about it was it emphasized the story continuing where they're building towards bigger things, which eventually, to me, is going to be an enormous program between Mox and Orange Cassidy that will pay off probably all out and continue.
Yeah, this one exceeded my expectations, and the device that they used that I thought was very smart is no matter who was out in the stadium fighting through the concourse or whatever, there was always action in the ring. The fans were never left bored and staring at a screen. There was always great action in the ring, and they would kind of swap out. Guys would go out and fight, and then they'd come back into the ring. I thought this was expertly done. You got a taste of AEW hardcore type bloodbath shit on a level of mania. I mean, when can you say 80,000 people have watched a man jam skewers into another man's forehead? I mean, when they were doing certain spots in this, me, Sneed, and Hawk were watching, and we were just laughing because it's like, man, it's almost a surreal moment to see the violence of these type of matches that we're kind of used to in AEW, but done on a stage as grand as this. It was wild seeing Moxley dig into his bag of tricks and pull some of this stuff out, man. I loved this match. I thought it was a lot of fun. It was a fun spectacle match for an event like this.
Yeah, and it was a win for deathmatch wrestling, where the biggest win they probably could have ever gotten. And even the finish was kind of a nod to Ian and Axel Rotten, whether they know it or not, with the glass on the tape on his hand.
Yeah, the kickboxer Van Dam stuff was awesome.
And just seeing the glass on it and the finish, having Orange pin Claudio also just shows how much stock they have in Orange going forward. And he makes that international championship feel big, where if Moxley takes it from him, I think the title goes to another level too. And I think it speaks volumes of, this is no longer just a mid-card championship. This feels bigger than that.
Yeah, and we'll get into that when we preview All Out, but I'm right there with you, man. I think all the angles they shot, and I just got to say hats off to Santana, looking jacked. Dude looked like he's been in the gym since his injury, came out looking like a star. It was phenomenal seeing him and Ortiz do some of those double teams together in the ring. Like, it was just nice to see Santana back up in the ring.
And the other thing that was really cool about this is it was a homage to, if you're a longtime fan, like with Sue showing up with the van, and like they're paying and they're nodding to you that you're paying attention. And this was cool, where I don't know, I like that kind of stuff when they pay off fans that are loyal, and it would be a fun spot regardless if you're there. Like, you could put two and two together. That's Trent's mom showing up with a cookie, but she's been involved in other street fights and just having their back. It was just cool. And then Moxley kissing the mom covered in blood, and the whole thing was very well done and fun too. That's the main thing. It was a change of pace on this card, where it wasn't just about the in-ring action. There was a lot of that tonight, but what we did see was just an eclectic hardcore match that, to me, it was, like you said, it was a good spot to see in front of 80K people. Like, we'd have never gotten that at WrestleMania. I understand that you can go back to certain matches when hardcore was like in vogue for a lot of wrestling fans and a lot of promotions, where WWE was definitely riding that coattail of the emerging popularity of ECW after they left. Like, go back to Foley versus Edge at WrestleMania, but that wasn't in front of an audience like this. That was an arena. That was in Chicago in front of an arena. Same thing that AEW continues to run. It was, think about since they've started doing stadiums. You go to 19 was probably the first big, huge stadium at Safeco Field, but like even recent years, we get hardcore stuff, but not to this level.
Like
not
this,
glass
man.
On hands, not skewers. You would never see that on WWE
Never.
TV. And maybe rightfully so. You can make the argument, but just to see a win for deathmatch wrestling, and it even spoke, like, another thing was you're seeing ICW No Holds Barred in the crowd, and that was another thing they posted it. Watch ICW NHB. And they agree, obviously. It was surreal, like you said. It was almost like you took that product and put it in front of like WrestleMania 30 run in San Francisco.
Yeah, and here's the thing. There's not an argument that you shouldn't have had that to me. There's going to be people that you shouldn't have done that. If you want to get big, I don't want them to do what WWE.
How could it get bigger than that? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I don't want them to go and do the safe version because the sponsors might get upset. I want to see AEW do what AEW does in front of 80,000 people. Stay true to yourself. Don't sell out and do the cookie cutter shit, even though, Sue brought the cookie trays. And just a quick, I got some heat with our brothers and sister over at Chick Foley. I just gotta, when they were previewing the show and this match was talking about it, they made the comment, and I love those guys, but they made the comment, why are the best friends in this match? No, like kind of downselling the best friends. And for diehard AEW fans, they want to see those dudes in a match like this. They want to see guys, road dogs, OGs, one of the original tag teams in this company. They are a part of the patchwork of the characters in AEW, man. They deserve to be here. They're Orange's guys. Like you said, Ace, it goes all the way back to when best friends were feuding with Ortiz and Santana, Sue and the Van. That is canon in AEW storytelling. For them to bring that in to a Wembley show is such an inside joke for the diehard AEW fan. That's as big a moment for a hardcore AEW fan as Dom coming out in Eddie's Lowrider at Mania. It is of that level. It doesn't maybe have the history of, Eddie and Ray and all of that, but as far as like, that's a moment to us. So seeing two dudes who during the pandemic busted their ass for this company when nothing was for sure. They didn't know they could be canceled if they didn't do these shows. To see two guys who have really put the company on their back in certain stretches of time, I loved it, man. They've never held tag titles, but they get this big spot moment, and I thought they looked great. It was a great match, so stop hating on my boys, the best friends. They deserve this spot.
I love it, man. And they're AEW loyalists, man. They've been their day one guys. You look at the Hal Haney art that he released for that original roster. They're right in the middle of it. So they are day one roster guys, and I'm glad they got a big moment like that. But speaking of day one AEW guys, we got the Young Bucks, man, in this trilogy match against FTR. And we saw one hell of a match, arguably the best match of the three, especially considering the size of the crowd. I know we keep saying that, but it adds a lot to the elements of the match. Where FTR got the win, they denied the Jackson brothers of their company record third championship reign. Both teams went to the limit. We saw nods to their first and second encounters where they did false finishes. They hit each other's finishers. We saw Young Bucks be the first team to kick out of
the Shatter Machine.
The Shatter Machine for the first time. I was about to call it the Big Rig, but go back to their WWE days. But we had to end the show or end the match to say Dax and Cash counter the Melcher driver. And the midair Shatter Machine was absolutely amazing. And they get the pin there. Even seeing it was a little more oomph on that. And seeing these guys work together, FTR did offer their hands in a handshake to end the match. The Young Bucks refused. And in their sixth title defense, they were able to hold on to their championship belts. And there's more story to be told here. Had you hoping, I mean, what do they do with a fourth match? You can make the argument it doesn't get bigger than this. Like, let them go their separate ways. How could you ever top this match? The fact that they didn't shake hands tells me that there's more on the horizon with at least these two teams. Maybe down the line, they're hopeful about doing the Elite versus CMFTR. Maybe they're leaving that there just in case. But I couldn't have said any more things about this match than it was amazing. And go out of your way to check this out. And I don't know. The other cool thing too, and I know we're hopping all over the place, was the streamers and seeing that on a grand stage like this, where you're so used to seeing it at ROH or smaller indie shows, the streamers, and we had pieces of that all night hanging from the structure on top of the ring. But
I love the little special opening too. They had
great.
The new music at the top, and Hawk was like, "How are you going to debut a new song at their biggest show?" And I'm like, "Give it a moment, dude. I think this is just an intro." Then they went back into the classic Bucks song, and phenomenal match from these teams. They never disappoint. I thought it was arguably. There's three matches that I loved that are vying for best match of the night, and this is one of them. AEW continues to show that tag team wrestling is paramount to their company. This isn't fodder. This isn't just something to fill the card out. This isn't just something to have to do to give these belts meaning. Tag team wrestling in AEW, the matches are second to none. There's not one company on the planet right now, in my opinion, that matches their tag team division. When the highest level of matches they have, they knocked it out of the park. I have one tiny critique about this match. everything was great. FTR won, which I thought was huge on the Bucks. That's a big decision for guys who are EVPs to allow FTR to do that. I know it's Tony Khan's call at the end of the day, but for them to go through and book it like that, the only thing I was wanting, and we were all calling for it in the room, when FTR extended their hands for that handshake, I was hoping the Bucks were going to super kick them. I was hoping, if I thought, okay, Bucks are going to let FTR go over, but the Bucks are going to plant them in the middle of the ring. Kind of similar to how I think, didn't Jericho nutshot HBK at Mania? One of those moments where they take the L, but they get him in the end and continue the feud. I was hoping for that. All we got was them walking away and not giving the handshake, but man, a well-placed stereo super kick would have been pretty awesome right there.
Yeah, and I know the boys went live after on the AEW wrap-up show talking about it, and there was a pretty heated conversation between Freems and Tom about the Bucks, and Freems was making the argument that the FTR can't wrestle themselves, because Tom was saying how he doesn't think the Bucks they're just choreographed bullshit. I think that's what he was saying.
That's a idiotic take.
So yeah, I was going to ask you your feelings on that. As far as, I mean, I feel like the best matches from FTR have been with the Young Bucks. You can make the argument they have great matches with the Briscoes. For me, my taste in wrestling, I think Young Bucks and FTR have this great collaborative approach where the two styles mix so well together. It's like peanut butter and chocolate. They have such a good mix together, because alone they're great, but I think together they make a Reese's Cup, and it's so good. Like seeing the technically sound in-ring Bret Hart style prowess versus this high-flying Lucha Jace type of style from the Young Bucks, which they're their own style. And I think all wrestling's choreographed to the point of, like, I think that's just the style today. So that you can't be critical of the Bucks being choreographed, where, you know, FTR is very similar in that way too. They have spots where they pull off the chain wrestling. That is, to me, that's just as choreographed as anything else.
Everything's choreographed. I don't understand. I mean, I get, like, if it looks like dance moves out there, but they never. The two critiques that the Bucks get, and I prefer FTR, but I love the Bucks too. But the two critiques the Bucks always get that I just butt up against, I do not agree with, is one, all their matches look choreographed, and two, they're not in-ring storytellers. They're just spot monkeys. I think those are the two dumbest takes, where it's like, are you really watching the matches, or are you just regurgitating an online opinion? Because, dude, these guys flow together, and I love that each team gives a little to the other team to let them shine in their own ways. And I didn't get to watch wrap up, so I didn't hear any of that. But I mean, wrestling, you are only as good as the guy you're in the ring with. Now, sure, you got those people like Ric Flair who they've said, oh, he can make a broomstick look good. Yeah, but he's not going to make a broomstick look great. You know what I mean? Like, great matches take two. And the reason these matches are so phenomenal is because both of these tag teams are operating at the highest level. I get some people prefer this guy over that guy, but even in, like, boxing and MMA, I've never really been that type of guy. I have people I enjoy, but I've never been like a fan that's like, I like this guy and that guy sucks. I just kind of take it all in, you know, and when a good matchup shows up, I enjoy it. I don't really get heat. Even like Damian Priest, I'm not a fan of him, but I get why people are. You know what I mean? Like, I would never say he sucks. He's terrible. It's just not my style. So I don't get when people go in on guys, because wrestling needs variety. And I think you couldn't get two more polar opposite teams.
Right.
But like you said, when they come together, it's like peanut butter and jelly, man. It just feels right.
And some other notes from the show: Sting and Darby Allin came out to Metallica's Seek and Destroy, which Sting used during his run from WCW 1999-2001, immediately popped, being a guy who enjoyed WCW briefly during that time, but then rewatching it nowadays, I immediately recognized as Tony Khan went to the bag and figured fans will pop for it. And Seek and Destroy is legendary for Sting. That era
very
just
cool
brought you back.
opening video too. Very cool opening video with them walking down the back alleys of London, Sting with the top hat, almost looking
Jack the
like
Ripper.
Jack the Ripper. Yeah, it was very cool, man.
And then they were victorious against Swerve and Christian in a very good match. I thought Swerve was excellent in this match, taking some crazy bumps. And same thing with Darby. Darby is just an absolute madman in the best way possible. Some of the planches out of the ring with his hands tied behind his back. And then obviously the spots on top of the coffin, where if you guys have ever been around a coffin and felt what those things feel like, the fact that he took a bump straight on his back from there is amazing that he's able to walk away from that. And he's unreal. He's one of a kind. I think
thought
Darby,
this match was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. I love the spot. Sting's in the coffin. You think he's out. He puts his bat out to stop the casket lid from closing. It was so many good little moments. And
I also enjoyed that Sting got this moment in front of this amount of the fans. And I heard you guys on the flagship talking about it with how they did him dirty at WrestleMania 31. And just, the Michael Cole planted line from Vince McMahon saying, this is what it feels like, Sting, to wrestle in front of all these fans. Well, guess what? Sting got to wrestle in front of more fans than any WrestleMania he's ever had as of right now. And we could say that. And Sting, I was a little bit, it's not my choice. It's his choice. The Joker Sting's not my bag, but the fact that he made the choice, had the creativity to be able to do it.
He's just having fun.
It's a legacy thing for him. Yeah. And he went out there and he delivered to me. And the fact that he did some table spots. And I also said that because I was rewatching a lot of Terry Funk matches and seeing him make the save after the Funk Ric Flair match and him coming out in 1989 and watching him serve for Sting, obviously a younger man, to see him all these years later where he's still wrestling at a high level. And they do such a good job protecting his legacy where he doesn't look exposed out there. I understand he's wearing a t-shirt, but everyone's having fun. He still gets massive reactions. And I just think it just shows you when you put the time in for wrestling, there's no one, in my opinion, that deserves more of the ability to control this kind of end of career narrative for himself, to get the applause, final curtain call for him. And it ends when he wants it to end. And he's still competing at very fun matches and meaningful programs. This has a lot of meaning to build up the TNT Championship. Sting's right in the mix of things.
Love it.
I pulled that away, man. I was like, I cannot believe we're still watching Sting at this level where he's going through tables and hitting spots and he's hitting the Stinger Splash and he hit the Scorpion Death Drop on top of a coffin. Imagine telling someone in 1996 that you're going to see him in 2023 doing that move in front of 81,000 people. Fantastic.
He's the icon. I mean, he has been wrestling my entire fandom, and I've been a little Stinger my entire fandom. And I love the spot where the table didn't break.
Yeah.
And he gets up and just does a butt drop on it, essentially, to break the table. And the fans start chanting, "You still got it." Dude can do no wrong in the eyes of the fans. Like, they want him to succeed. They love seeing him put over. And I'm so thankful that you have a booker who you can tell also grew up as a little Stinger and honors him and respects him and doesn't, bury him in a way. I loved seeing him in front of 80,000 in a crazy fun match with young talent. It cannot go overstated how much this union between Sting and Darby has meant for this company.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, we'll continue to see Sting go as long as he wants. And it was clear that Tony Khan will allow it to continue. And it's not in lieu of younger talent. He's helping younger talent. He's helping Swerve in this match. He's even helping a guy like Darby Allin throughout. That goes without saying. Like, he already got the rub from him, but he continues. He's going to carry that Sting legacy, that Crow legacy for the rest of his career. He's going to go around and he has that buzz that Sting created, and it's passing on the knowledge tree. And I think it's the best way to use it, because a lot of times companies mistake it. We saw TNA do it. WCW did it, where you have these big stars and you want to put the title on them. You want to put big programs around them. AEW is recognizing that the real formula is building your own homegrown talent and peppering in these nostalgia acts, the Arn Andersons, the Tully Blanchards, the Stings. These guys help build your future talent and put leverage behind them. There's a reason that FTR we all knew FTR were going to be huge stars, but putting Tully with them from the start
was incredible.
Was massive. So same thing with Sting and Darby. That union has been so great for not only Darby, but as you mentioned before, AEW.
Yeah.
So we said Will Ospreay defeating Chris Jericho in what was a really good match. Though Chris Jericho kept up with him every step of the way.
Put some respect on this man's name. I was saying this in the flagship. Everyone was selling Jericho down the river like he's an old man. We want to see Kenny and Ospreay run it back again. One, I don't think those dudes can take that amount of punishment, Osprey and Omega, that close together. Let them take a break from one another. But you got to give, the Ocho, the Demo God, La Champion, you got to give him his due, because I thought he showed up, and I thought this was a top 3 match for me on the night. I thought he showed up and showed out, and I loved this match. I thought it was great.
Yeah, and he showed up with performing Judas, which was cool to see, because
killer.
When we started, and again, this was perspective of having years of AEW in our bank now, where Jericho singing Judas over the loudspeaker was first started during the pandemic era of shows, and now we get this in front of 81,000 people. I know people talk about it's himself jerking himself off and patting himself on the back. Who cares? This was a lot of fun, and the fans were singing along with them.
If you're not going to jerk yourself off, who is?
The rub and tug maps, obviously.
Let the guy. He's earned the right. People are so quick to just like sell a legend down the road, like, oh, it's just him doing this or that. He's earned the right. Go down his lineage of matches. Dude has earned the right. He was in, for my money, the best cruiserweight division of all time, WCW. He was right there. The heel turn in '98, incredible. All of his stuff in WWE, from the list to the debut, Y2J, the feud with Shawn Michaels, everything he's done, going to New Japan, wrestling Kenny, wrestling all of those guys, coming here, his run back in ECW, going to Mexico. If the guy, he has a rock band that tours and is pretty successful, and you're going to give him shit because he sang his way to the ring, relax. I thought it was epic. It all started on the Jericho cruise. It just kind of was an organic thing. The fans started singing that song. It caught fire through the pandemic, became a thing. Live crowds came in. It was there. And to hear 80,000 plus singing Judas as he's singing himself to the ring, dude, if that's not a quote unquote mania moment, I don't know what else is.
Speaking of music, we got Saraya coming to the ring with Queen's "We Will Rock You" along with all her family.
Awesome.
She goes on to win the women's championship in the 4-way. Big moment for Saraya. I'm not sure if you guys were saying in the chat, but would not shock me to see her drop the title immediately at All Out. I think they wanted this moment. I can see them put, hot shot in the title elsewhere. They want this moment to live in lore, and rightfully so. This was a really big moment, and paying for Queen, what does that cost? Tony Khan dipped into the funds. Like, we made $10 million on the gate. Let's dig and get Queen here.
Very cool. And honestly, I had goosebumps when I saw her entire family, knowing that her family is, just a kind of a dynasty family in the UK, and to see them all kind of off the backs of Saraya, following her to the ring for a big match, had a big fight feel, "We Will Rock You" jamming over the loudspeaker. I thought it was a fun moment, man. I loved it. And I honestly don't think she's going to drop it at All Out. I think we're going to see a little bit of a run here.
We also had Mercedes Moné present, and they wasted no time showing her during the pre-show and later in the night during the trios title match. Commentary definitely acknowledged her being there. Fans were reacting to her on the big screen. We know she didn't have action since getting hurt at New Japan Pro Wrestling Resurgence on May 21st. And seems like they're kind of heating her up for a match against Julia in New Japan Pro Wrestling. But this has me thinking, obviously, the relationship. We're going to talk about the event, the Wrestle Dream event that's coming up in October. She might be getting healthy, and it's inevitable she's going to wind up in AEW doing something. She's too big of a star not to be, doing things here. But I think she has unfinished business in New Japan Pro Wrestling, but that doesn't mean she's not going to be in AEW by, let's just say, before the winter.
Well, I know PW Insider came out and said that it's pretty much a lock that once she is cleared to return, she will be doing dates with AEW. So
yeah, that
was something I read later today, or earlier today, I should say, but that's awesome. I mean, bring her in. I want them to sign Julia too. Like, if they're really wanting to ramp up this division, not to say, talent is going to help this division, storytelling needs to come first, but who would be mad at them bringing Mercedes Moné in? There was a reason why they kept cutting to her. It wasn't just a one cut. They kept cutting to her throughout the show. And if you heard Tony in the press conference, when he was asked about Mercedes Moné, the dude said it like 10 times in a minute span, where he's like, she's not cleared. because he kept saying it because I think he was like wanting his partners in New Japan to know, look, man, I'm not trying to contract tamper. She's just here as a guest. But if you think they weren't some little conversations behind closed doors, you're insane.
Yeah, and so the other incident we have to talk about quickly here, and we have the details kind of they were a little blurry. We got during the show about a backstage incident that Tony Khan did confirm happened to start. We didn't get any of that drama clearing, any of the issues that we had the last All Out. They didn't let CM Punk have that, and apparently, according to Nick Hausman, Punk left the venue following that on his own accord. He wasn't asked to leave, as been reported elsewhere, and according to the same report, this is all hearsay, and this is what people are saying. Miro said none of this happened, but Perry walked up to Punk backstage. Punk asked him if they have a problem. Perry then said in his face, do something about it, leading Punk to put Perry in a front face lock. And
they keep calling it chokehold to make it sound more deadly than it is. You just got him in a headlock, man. Relax.
The other quote I had that was funny, and it's like low-hanging fruit because of his UFC career or the fight that he had that he got knocked out. And the quote from Hausman was, we're told Punk viewed putting Perry in a chokehold as a way to neutralize the situation, as he's a trained fighter and does not want to have to fight Perry, which I pop for because it's so ridiculous. But now it seems like we're going to get suspensions on both sides. I know you said you have a take on this. I'll let you kind of take the lead on this. I, for one, am just happy that Tony Khan is taking some leadership here and getting in the face of this. And it doesn't matter who started this. Just like children, you both are guilty by association. Go in your corners and, sit in the penalty box for a little bit because you're both guilty.
No, 100%. And not to sell Punk's MMA training down the road. I know
it was funny. It was funny though. How do you not laugh at that?
He got his ass whooped 2 times in UFC against trained fighters, but the dude does train at Duke Rufus Sport in Milwaukee, which is a renowned MMA gym that has churned out many, many world champions. He's around killers. He does know some things. And you see this all the time on the videos, like people robbing stores, and there'll be some guy who's trained up and he'll get the robber in a chokehold per se to kind of neutralize them until the cops come. I could see him doing that. I'm going to get him in a headlock where nothing happens. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. First, regardless of what you think about CM Punk or the Bucks or the Elite or Brawl Out, everybody's got their opinions on Punk. A lot of people hate his guts. A lot of people love him. I'm kind of in the middle. I just kind of try to call it right down the middle. And this was Jack Perry's fault. This was Jack Perry's fault. He got up in the camera and said that. Now, should that make Punk upset? No, it shouldn't. But should Jack Perry poke the bear knowing what could happen at the biggest stage? He blatantly got up. He said the real glass comment, which started all of this. Now, I have no heat with Jack Perry over this. I have no heat with CM Punk over this. This whole little scuffle, who gives a shit? It was a headlock. Some words were exchanged. Who cares? Here's the people I have a problem with. And here's the people that I think Tony Khan, and hats off to Tony for suspending both of these guys, showing some balls, showing some leadership. But Tony needs to fire these people that are leaking to the dirt sheets every time a little thing happens that probably in the grand scheme isn't a big deal, but they run to their phone and call their buddy Sean Ross Sapp or Wade Keller or Alvarez or Meltzer. And I take all the dirt sheet shit in. I'm not a person who hates the dirt sheets. But if you work for a company, a pro wrestling company, especially one that has been having negative press from locker room shit, and you're one of the moles in the back locker room that keeps that makes a mountain out of a molehill and runs to the dirt sheets, especially at a show like this, I would start putting out cheese for the rats. I would start falsifying information, and I would find out who the mole is, and I would shit can them on their ass. And I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's the Bucks. I don't care who it is. Whoever is leaking information, they are the problem, because this is an internal issue. This is an argument that could have been squashed right there. The press doesn't find out about it. We're none the wiser. It doesn't become this issue that takes away from an incredible event. But somebody had to run and go talk some shit to a dirt sheet guy. And now it's what people is talking about. So to me, that's the real poison in this locker room. CM Punk's an asshole, but you know what he is. So it's like you're doing business with him. So you have to accept what he is, man, and roll with it. Same with the other guys. You got to accept. If they don't want to work with him, you have to accept it. But what you cannot accept is treason. And to me, if you're a guy on the roster who is putting stuff out into the press, you're hurting the company. You know it's not good for the company. You know it's not good press. You know it's giving the company a stigma. So you have to find the treasonists and eliminate them. And I don't care who it is, whoever's floating this shit out. If Vince McMahon, there was many stories you've heard Bruce Pritchard and all those people talk about finding moles and firing them. That's how Tony needs to find out who's leaking this shit and get rid of them.
My only pushback is that happened in Gorilla. There's a lot of people there that probably don't even work for the company. So I'm not saying they're the ones that leaked it. It would be hard. If this happened behind closed doors, there are situations, the original one, the brawl out happened behind closed doors.
I find it hard to believe it's stadium security contacting Meltzer. These are people within the wrestling industry that have a contact that can reach out to these people, that know how to reach out to them, because this shit will immediately hit the internet before the show even started.
Yeah.
This isn't, and there's not people like event staff isn't lurking around Gorilla. I mean, Gorilla's typically like power. It's the brain trust for the most part, and maybe a few here and there, but no, the people that are seeing this have a direct line, and they're I don't know. I just don't like the mole situation. You got to get rid of them. People keep wanting to throw Punk under the bus, and I get it. I'm not trying to take up for the dude. I get he's an asshole. I get he's a baby. I get he's overly sensitive. He's thin-skinned, but that's what he is. And if you want him in your company to make money, that's what you got to fucking deal with. It just is. But you don't. You need to button it up, man. It's like leaks are going to happen in any company, but how many times do we see in the NFL fights break out during training camp, fights breaking out in the locker room? It is an every season shit like that happens. And you know why it doesn't become a big deal? Because they crush it internally. And there's so many things that happen that never get out to press because they have a tight lid on their locker room. But to me, that's the problem. AEW has a lot of unloyal people who would rather stir shit in the press because they're probably upset with their placement on the card or their booking or whatever it is. I don't know.
No, I hear your point for sure. I just think that as a leader in the locker room, I think Jack Perry is 100% in the wrong here. But as a leader in the locker room, you should not be taking that bait. I think Bryan Danielson wouldn't take that bait. You got to lead by example and hold him accountable. If Jack Perry threw the first punch after saying something to your face, I think he'd have the right to be fired. But the fact that now it's both he says, she said, who started, who did this, as a leader. And maybe he doesn't.
But how many times does Punk have to prove he's a leader and to be the bigger guy? I'm so like, if this is like
not a leader though, he clearly doesn't want to be.
I think he's a leader to some people. He's a leader to some people. I think this is the SoCal contingent that just there is a contingent that do not like him. I get why they don't like him, but at the same time, it's like I said a couple weeks ago, if Ox Baker walked up to Brody, anybody back in the old school and said, do something about it, is that guy going to be like, I'm a leader, I need to be the bigger man? No, they would have whooped their fucking ass right there. Like, we are in a soft generation where, yeah, he should be the bigger man. But how many times, I just have a problem always blaming Punk. always blaming Punk. Like, is he just supposed to sit there and eat shit as a leader and let this guy run off at the mouth? Like, I don't know.
That's what a leader is, though. I mean, the leader is to be the bigger person, and maybe he doesn't want. But maybe at this point, though, we have to change our perspective of what he is perceived as you mentioned. Like, people have to accept him at what he is, and if you want him there to do the things he's going to do, you have to accept sort of the warts that come with it. And I think that perspective changes for fans. I think he wants the locker room to be led by him in his way. And I saw a funny meme that was like, it was a Simpsons meme, and it was Bart like messing stuff up, and Homer was yelling at him, and it was like CM Punk continues to cause this for him. And of course, that's perspective. But as far as
a leopard doesn't change his spots, man, you're expecting this leopard to be a fucking house cat. He's not. He's a leopard. If you talk shit to him, he's going to talk shit to you back, and it's probably going to come to fisticuffs. If you don't want him in the company because of that, then fucking fire him and get rid of him. But if you're wanting to be in the CM Punk business, and you know he adds a certain amount of eyes, and just to be honest, like, he does make it interesting, even on screen. Like, I like when he's cutting a promo. I like his stuff with Ricky Starks and Samoa Joe. But if you want to be in that business, this is what comes with it. This is what comes with it. And you can't expect him to be the bigger man when we know that's not him. That's not him. Stop asking him to do things that he is not.
Yeah, I mean, every day that goes past, I think Triple H looks like a saint, because all this stuff was under wraps. Maybe it was just the structure in place, but I think at some point, like you said,
another thing, it's like, I feel like this is what gets the clicks. This stigma of him, it's there for a reason. Stereotypes exist for a reason. They're rooted in some sort of truth. I get that. But like, you also throw away, you throw away positions where it wasn't on him. But the fact that he's got this reputation, the cliquey nature of it is to throw him in there and throw him in this light. And I just don't really, we ask him to be the bigger man here. But what do we ask of Jungle Boy? What did you expect this to get you? Honestly, like why did you do that? Should, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, Jungle Boy's wrong in that situation, 100%. But I think
shut up, dude.
We would be doing we were spinning a whole different narrative if Punk let him talk his shit and walked away. Because I mean, silence is the best killer of controversy. And if he walked away, Jack Perry just looks like a spoiled baby. But that's not what happened.
Would Undertaker have walked away in that same position?
Who knows? Who knows?
Jungle Boy would have been a grease spot. What was his crew? The
BSK, the Bone Skull
BSK.
crew. Yeah.
You think the BSK is going to put up with stuff like that? I think there's a little bit of that, man. There's a little bit of that old school in Punk that just does not jive with AEW's new school philosophies. I really do.
I think boiled down to, I mean, it was trendy for him to kind of ride against as a disgruntled ex-WWE guy, but now that he's coming in and really trying to upset the apple cart of AEW, I think that's where fans are at, because AEW was a utopia for wrestling, and maybe that was always going to end, but I think now he's that person that feels like he's poisoning the water, and we keep seeing controversy.
MJF put it best in the post-press conference. He's like, sure, we fight, but what job? There's people at my job that sometimes you want to put their head through a wall. Like, you don't always get along with your coworkers, especially this isn't an office job. This is high testosterone, ego. And the fact that it's now became this stigma with Punk that he's an asshole. It's always been there. I get it. But it's like nothing really serious has ever happened. It's always an argument, a fist fight here, an argument there, a little shit talk here, a little shit talk there. It's only a big deal because you have people that every time this little thing happens, they run to Sean Ross Sapp, and then it blows up into this deal. And I get they're just doing their job. They're just reporting what we read. But that's why I think they're the issue. Because if you didn't have moles running and spilling the beans all the time, this wouldn't be as big of an issue. Obviously, Brawl Out was right front and center. That's why it was such a big deal. It was right in the public's eye. But all these other things, they only have legs to them because Brawl Out happened. And now every little thing that's reported after that makes it seem like it's still that way in the locker room.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see that perspective for sure. It's hard to watch a company that reinvigorated my love for pro wrestling again be dragged through the mud, and it can't be blamed on one guy. I understand it. It's two-sided, and
it's not a utopia, though. I think people looking for a wrestling utopia, wake up, man. It was never gonna be like that. And the only reason
it was for the first 2 years. I understand that
honeymoon phase, dude.
Yeah, I understand that, but it was nice to have our wrestling where everyone was, it was.
If you want to grow, you got to bring in ego. Big egos create big money, and with big egos and big money comes big problems. So,
yeah, and we're going to continue to talk about that over time, but let's move into big story number 2.
Big story 2.
We have Payback this weekend, and we have a great event on deck, and this is really the fallout from SummerSlam that is happening here, and this is our first time taking shape here, and we saw this coming to grips here with Nakamura right in front and center as a main eventer. Seth Rollins going to be defending against Shinsuke Nakamura for the World Heavyweight Championship, and I got to say, I've been very impressed with this build, and they've done this a couple times with guys that have been main eventers, and they've taken a little bit to heat them back up. They have all these main eventers that are always on the back burner, and all you got to do is like microwave them up, and they're heated quick. Nakamura felt a little bit more organic than that. They did that to AJ Styles for a bit during the initial tournament to get this off the ground with the World Heavyweight Championship tournament. But Nakamura feels like he's reinvigorated. We get this main top guy, and I feel like match quality alone, this can be worth the watch. And there's been some good character development for both these guys.
No, that video package they did with Nakamura where he talked about, what he whispered in Seth's ear, and it was about, I know about your back. He looked like a movie villain in that. Like we haven't seen Shinsuke look like this in a while. I thought it was incredible to see him back in this spot. I think he's probably just going to be another notch on Rollins' reign to try and legitimize this title. But still, yeah, this is a guy who was running roughshod over New Japan for years, came to NXT, had a hell of a run, won a Rumble, and then just kind of disappeared into mid-card obscurity. So now that, Trips has the pencil, he can bring him back in. This is what they need, man. I think the main event scene is kind of thin for them as far as like contenders for Seth, and to elevate guys like this into positions like this, I think it's a brilliant move.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a great match itself. Will it have the World Heavyweight Championship does not have the same weight that the belts that Roman holds right now, and without him on the card right now, rumor has it he's not even going to be in the arena for this. So we'll certainly see what happens there. They have, Friday SmackDown to figure that out, but I think at this point we're not getting a title defense. We're going to have this championship, and that might be better for it. It doesn't have to be overshadowed by it. It could main event, and Rollins and Nakamura are going to have the time to do their thing. So, we also have the Women's World Championship, Rhea Ripley defending against Raquel Rodriguez. And Rhea, she's the story here. Judgment Day is the hottest act on Raw. And I posted something on my Instagram where they main evented Judgment Day, some variation. Judgment Day has main evented Raw 14 out of the last 17 weeks. Just remarkable to see. This is just another defense for Rhea. There's no real story that is meaningful here. This is just to get Rhea on the card. She's one of the most overacts in all of the company right now, as is Judgment Day. There's not much buzz behind this match for me, and let the Raw Down boys break it down a little bit better. But Raquel Rodriguez, could you get her to a point where you believe she's going to be champion one day? Not against Rhea, though.
Well, I think this is outside of Impact Wrestling. I think this is the major problem with women's wrestling in general across the two major promotions of AEW and WWE is you have a lot of talented women and you have shallow storytelling. They don't do storytelling in WWE with the women either. They don't. Like, when is the last time you had a long, truly compelling story? I guess they're doing it a little bit with Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch, but they botched that, not having the match at SummerSlam and moving it to here. Rhea's a bona fide star. I argued on a debate a couple weeks ago that I think she's at WWE's MVP right now. And this match, it's a blip to me. There's nothing behind it. There's no steam behind it. I don't really care about it. I think Rhea walks away with it. pretty easily. Yeah.
We also have the U.S. Championship on the line. Rey Mysterio defending his newly won title against Austin Theory in a contractually obligated rematch. Rinse and repeat. There wasn't much story here. Rey Mysterio, of course, was supposed to go over in that U.S. title contender tournament. He lost because he got hurt in the match. And Santos Escobar got into the match. And then when Rey was cleared, he had Santos. They did an injury angle with Santos, and Rey Mysterio won the title, which was cool to see. Austin Theory is kind of dead man walking here as far as creatively. I think this is going to be a successful title defense for Rey. They need to send Austin Theory away, repackage him, and bring him back, because I think he's a raw material that is there. I see he has all the skills to be successful. It's just right now this iteration of him is just not working, and I think that, I don't know, maybe got to write him off for a bit and have him come back in a big way.
And the sad thing is this is a repackaged Austin Theory.
True.
Like there was the selfie Austin Theory under McMahon, and then when Triple H took over, he kind of gave him that hard edge. He grew a little bit of a beard out. And
yeah.
Killer run in where he attacked. I forget who he attacked, but it was like, wow, we're seeing a new edge from this guy. And he's just kind of vanilla to me now. I think he either needs to go to NXT, brush up, do some programs there with maybe Carmelo. I don't know. Or you just send him away completely and repackage him like you said, Ace. But he needs something. I think Rey rolls here. I don't know why. I don't know what they have in store for the U.S. title. I still haven't really figured out, like, I think Rey is a stepping stone to what they want to get to, but I don't know what it is they want to get to yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think also you can look at one of the other matches on the card, LA Knight versus The Miz, and I think that match easily could be a U.S. Championship program if they found a way to get the title on The Miz in the transition from Austin Theory. I don't know, they figure out a way. I understand maybe Miz takes it from Rey and then LA Knight takes it from him. I think the goal should be get the mid-card championship on LA Knight, because for too long, this guy's been, you don't want it to pass. We watched what happened with Sami Zayn. Yes, he's still over. Yes, we saw Quebec City singing his song and everybody loves him, but they missed the boat on that one. And I understand it. They got to kind of really craft this LA Knight push accordingly. And everyone said, be patient, be patient. We're going to get it. I'm not so sure. LA Knight's kind of in a meddling feud right now with The Miz. And like, really, that's how you extinguish a lot of momentum, is put him in meaningless matches. And that's what we're getting right now.
Yeah, I think he's hot, but a feud with The Miz doesn't do a whole lot for me. And it kind of worries me about maybe they're cooling off on him. Maybe, I don't think putting a mid-card belt on LA Knight, I don't know, man.
I mean, the U.S. title's meaningless right now. So you're right.
It's just like, if he gets that U.S. title, it almost hurts him, in my opinion. Like, I don't know what's going on with LA Knight and The Miz. They're both fun talkers. You could say The Miz buried him a couple weeks ago in that promo battle they had. I thought LA Knight did well, but The Miz he can cut deep. I remember the promo he cut on Enzo Amore one time, just shredded the guy. So I think they're putting LA Knight through the low level ringer.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to put you one-on-one with this guy. Let's see how you fare. I think they're testing him. They're trying him out. Can we truly believe in this guy to be in that main event scene? Because I do think they would like him to get there, but let's see if he passes the test.
Yeah, and the comedic damage that they've done with The Miz, we watched him use that for so long, even WrestleMania, where he gets these moments. Yeah, they do these things where, yeah, he could be a great heel and he has great lineage, former IC champion, former WWE champion, Money in the Bank holder, tag team champion, but really, from the audience that's been watching for a long time, I don't think anyone takes The Miz seriously anymore because of how they use him consistently. He's always the butt of every joke. And I understand there's some flexibility on that, but like now LA Knight, what's left for him to gain from beating The Miz? And I think we're sitting here like, okay, what's next for him? He's going to win the Rumble? Probably not. And yeah, kind of rinse and repeat. I think maybe put him in the spot to take that Shinsuke Nakamura spot against Seth Rollins down the line, or vice versa, have Shinsuke beat him, and LA Knight, his first program is against Shinsuke for the World Heavyweight Championship. Then we're talking a little bit, but
right.
I think they're not even close to that.
No, I don't think they're close to that either. And I think The Miz is good at what he does, but he's just a utility player. I know he's been in a main event spot. I think it was a kind of a down year when he was when he was there, but I don't know, man. I just think he's kind of He's put in a lot of years in WWE. He's that go-to guy you can trust. But as far as him carrying the division or being in any big monumental place, he's a gatekeeper to the stars. You know, to become a star, you kind of have to go through a little program with Miz. Fuck, even Cody did his little Miz thing. So I
he's
think
a glorified jobber, though, in my opinion. If you watch Raw consistently, he's a glorified enhancement.
100%. His matches do nothing for me. They never have.
So, steel cage match, Trish Stratus versus Becky Lynch. This was the excess off SummerSlam, so we're going to get the final piece here. Trish Stratus on the... I give her credit as a nostalgia act. She could have just done the whole Stratus faction thing as a face, like the heel tendency she had.
Super respect for... Much respect for Trish.
Akin to Jericho, like reinventing himself. I love that Trish came back and did that.
I'm not... I don't get where people, when legends come back, they feel like someone's taking a spot. Legends have earned that, and when they're in their 40s, I'm not an ageist in pro wrestling, because when they're getting up in their late 40s, early 50s, man, that's when they have the business in the palm of their hand. A lot of times they know all the tricks to pull out. And I have the young guys to watch the 5-star matches. I just want to be entertained by these people. And Trish does it. Trish is still entertaining, and I love her as a heel. Much respect for her, not just coming back and getting that cheap babyface pop every week.
So we also have the Grayson Waller Effect show with guest Cody Rhodes. So we're going to get Cody in.
This is interesting.
Here. We're very interesting because it may start a nice program between Grayson and Cody Rhodes going forward, or it could have some inklings about how we're going to bridge the gap from now until WrestleMania 40, where inevitably we believe Cody will take on Roman again in the rematch. But has me also looking at it, no Roman Reigns, no Usos, no Gunther, no Cody Rhodes in a match. So this is a card that's like severely lacking that star power in the ring. At least we get Cody in a segment. He'll be there in a suit talking, but this is kind of a bare bones pay-per-view here. I understand Peacock has it all baked into the subscription, but yeah, this is not their best effort. And sometimes the best WWE shows are the ones that are like this. This reminds me of when they had the brand exclusive pay-per-views that was Raw versus SmackDown. This feels like very bad bare bones as far as, you know, that piece. There's some matches here, like the Shinsuke Seth match should be good, but other than that, what are you watching for? This might just be a stacked SmackDown or Raw.
That's what I was going to say, man. This is maybe a notch above a really high level Raw or SmackDown. I think this is all by design. I think the bloodline isn't here because they're wanting to stretch. They're stretching for time. They're putting them on the shelf, stretching for time. The Grayson Waller effect with Cody Rhodes, I think, is interesting, especially with Grayson Waller, because I'm a big fan of him. And it just makes my mind go, is this setting up a program between these two guys? Or is this going to be, are we going to get some sort of run-in or interruption from someone who is going to be Cody's next stopping point on the way to WrestleMania 40? Like, do we get a Gunther? Do we get a
Randy Orton?
Randy Orton, yeah, like Randy Orton. Even like Bobby Lashley and his new crew. I would love to see them get a little heat behind them. I'm liking the repackaging of those guys, but who knows?
And let's get to big story number 3 and talk about the other event that's happening the exact same weekend, Labor Day weekend.
Big story 3.
So we have All Out from the United Center. This is the annual event here for AEW, Sunday, September 3rd, holiday weekend, back-to-back with All In, overshadowed by the great big shadow that's being casted by Wembley Stadium and the pageantry that was All In this past weekend. But we have some matches announced, and of course, they're going to go into overdrive on Dynamite and also on Collision. We're going to get more on it, but the other big story here is based on the actions that we kind of covered extensively in big story number 1.
Yeah.
Punk and Jack Perry could miss this weekend's all out pay-per-view in Chicago. And according to Brian Alvarez, the belief within AEW is that this will be immediate. We'll see what happens. Nothing's official. Tony Khan hasn't said anything, but it is a ballsy move to not have CM Punk in Chicago. Whether your opinion on him is positive or negative, it is a ballsy move from Tony Khan to say CM Punk, because of what happened, you're not in Chicago. And that could piss off a lot of fans.
And it could piss off Punk. Yeah, man. Much respect to Tony Khan for having the cojones to drop a bomb a week out. You only have a week to solidify this card. 2, you are running the United Center, which is the first time you've ever run the United Center for All Out. All Out has been at Allstate Arena, or
the Now Arena, yeah, former
Now
Allstate
Arena,
yeah.
Yeah, so like we're talking about a jump up in tickets, a lot more tickets to sell, and your hometown boy, who probably a lot of those people bought tickets to see, Chicago's very own, isn't going to be there, it looks like. And rumor was they were keying up for Punk versus Ricky Starks, because Ricky Starks was supposed to be, his suspension ends right before All Out. It was supposed to be there. I mean, Jack Perry, you can miss. Jack Perry, it's like, yeah, you suspend him. You can fill a card out without needing Jack Perry. But Punk, man, the balls on TK to make that call. And the card isn't filled out yet. I mean, what do we have, Ace? We've got Orange Cassidy or Penta going against Moxley for the International.
Yep.
We've got the TNT title, Luchasaurus and Darby Allin. We got Miro and Hobbs. We've got Statlander and Soho for the TBS championship. And we've got Omega and Takeshita. There's a lot of holes in this card.
Yeah.
So
unless you run back some stuff from All In, but most of the story there has been Omega Takeshita was built there because Takeshita pinned Omega. And then also Miro and Powerhouse has been built up pretty well in Collision. Same thing with Luchasaurus and Darby Allin. There's been some extensive storytelling. And as we mentioned, Orange Cassidy and Moxley, but what are you doing with the world title? You're running back Adam Cole and MJF, which I don't think they do a week out. That. Maybe they do a tag title defense. Maybe they do FTR versus them again and put title for title. Like you could go somewhere like that. But this might be one of those cards that they kind of just punt. And the thing is, they signed up for it again next year, back-to-back weekends where they figure it out. This is it's a tough build to do this. Impact's doing it, not as big a spotlight on them by doing it with the Multiverse and Emergence show, but one of the shows is lacking as far as build because you can't focus on 2 shows and build 2 cards.
Well, the downside to this card is one of my critiques of All In for a phenomenal event like All In that I think entertained, great matches, a lot of good storytelling. The one thing it didn't do enough of, there was a little bit there, but I was shocked at how little they shot angles for All Out. Like I thought there was going to be bigger things that would get the people to put their money down and be like, man, I have to see All Out now. I don't feel like they have that thing yet. They don't. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure. I think everyone's betting that Orange Cassidy is going to defend his title against Penta and go into All Out against Moxley. Orange Cassidy. I'm actually going to pick Moxley to beat Orange Cassidy and solidify that title as one of the more important titles. But that match isn't I just spent $50 on All In. I have to spend $50 on All Out. Like they don't have that for me right now.
Yeah, I don't see anything on this card. Maybe the plan was be Punk versus Starks for the Real World Championship, and that was going to be their in-place story mechanism to have the world title on the card, but it's not. I don't know if MJF has a contender. Maybe you could, you could do something over the course of Wednesday and Saturday. We've seen them heat it up. That Go Home show pretty much did it all for All In. So they figured out a way to get it all in, pun intended, into the card right away. So you could heat stuff up, but like you said, Omega Takeshita are going to be a great 5-star level match, but is it going to bring people to say, I have to order this? Like you mentioned, times are tough. You don't want to drop $100 and change over the course of the, 2 weeks. It's a tough sell for a lot of fans. And maybe it's going to hurt the buy rate. Maybe Tony Khan doesn't care because of how well All In did, like between the buy rate and plus in person. Maybe he's just like, you know what, here it is. And maybe they're better equipped next year to do this and have a plan in place because they will have a rhythm to it. But I'll believe it when I see it because I think one of these shows has to take a hit. There's no way you can put as much emphasis on both shows, and All In's going to get most of the love because they're bigger. It's a bigger crowd. It's pomp and circumstance that there's more pressure on that to succeed, and All Out kind of lives there. And maybe it's going to be the best matches ever that we're going to see because that's sometimes AEW works like that, where you have cards that are not built up well. They kill it. I'm going to order it regardless because I'm dying
100%.
But there might be some people on the fence that are not really looking to see it. And that might be a fair argument.
Well, Dynamite and Collision are going to be vitally important this week to really lock things in. So we'll see. We'll see. Right now, I'm kind of good matches, but nothing really drawing me in hardcore. And this whole Punk suspension with Jack Perry, we'll see how that plays into it. I'm going to be shocked if that sticks. I think CM Punk finds his way on this card. I really do. I don't think Tony Khan has the balls to keep him off this card, but we'll see.
We shall see for sure in Chicago. We're definitely going to be watching. We'll keep you guys updated next week how it goes down, and we'll break down Payback for sure. But let's get into our quick hitters. Quick hitters. So first story in the quick hitters right here, while everyone was recovering from all the wings they ate and all the beers they drank during All In, Impact was taking the stage for Emergence from Toronto, and a great night of wrestling on the Impact Plus app. If you missed it, go check it out. It was a great event. Some of the big stuff that came out of that, well, we have new Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champions. They were crowned on Sunday as the Rascals became title holders for the first time as they beat Subculture. Subculture won the titles back at Slammiversary. The match kind of ended with Wentz and Trey Miguel isolated Flash Morgan. They finished him off with a double stomp, and then they hit the Burning Hammer. Awesome to see. Rascals are the most over group in all of Impact Wrestling. Seeing them together, they're running roughshod over it. The money feud to me is ABC and the Rascals. Now that the titles are back in the play, I want to see them running back, maybe at Bound for Glory. Webster and Andrews kind of put a punctuation on their title reign, their first as a team over 40 days. They defended their titles 4 times, just once in Impact themselves. They were all over the indies doing it. But yeah, this was always a mechanism in place to get the titles on the Rascals, and here we are. Very impressed with this match. Definitely match of the night, but I like the tag. You mentioned tag team division being emphasized in AEW, but they do the same thing in Impact.
100%. I mean, they have the good hands. I love ABC, Subculture, obviously the Rascals just winning the tag titles. I thought this was a brilliant booking move. You put the tag titles back on the hills, and now the baby faces that everyone loved that lost the titles can now chase, which is, ABC. Love that tag team. And I think that's the feud everyone wants to watch. And I think that feud opens itself up to a series of matches. So I can't wait to see those two teams clash.
So we had Steve Maclin making his return to Impact on Sunday after being away for several months due to injury. We've been reporting it on Wrestling Tonight, talking about he's returning from the groin injury. He made a surprise appearance to attack Josh Alexander on the ramp during the 8-man tag main event. And he went after the injured left arm of Josh Alexander. They had a brawl and they were separated. A lot of heat to this. And we saw a lot of stuff in this main event with this 8-man tag. And there's been some argument that maybe the world title should have been defended. We were just talking about how sometimes it's not and sometimes it's okay. And back-to-back shows. And they made sure to have Alex Shelley defend the championship at the Multiverse show. He beat Tanahashi, but they also defended on the go-home show against Brian Meyer. So it didn't have as much of a detriment to the card that Alex Shelley didn't defend it. And their star power here at the top of the card in Impact is staggering to me. I was on Brace for Impact. Colton wasn't feeling while I was on there myself, and I was talking about just the possibilities of where they can go. Obviously, Josh Alexander feels like he should get the title back because that's the story that was unwritten and not finished. Steve Maclin was the guy who took the championship and ran with it right after Alexander got hurt, which is a story in itself. Now you're linking the two of them up. And there's a lot to be said where Alexander finished the rest of the match. He got pinned by Moose after Alex Shelley walked out on his team. So there's all that other layers as well. And Maclin and Alexander were supposed to wrestle for the world title at Rebellion until he had to withdraw. Maclin defeated Kushida for the vacant title before losing to Shelley in June. There's so many webs, like the Charlie Day thing from Always Sunny, where you're connecting all the red string to it. Yeah. Impact's world title scene, this is better than ever, man. There's 8 legitimate guys that could walk away as champion at any given time, and it's fantastic.
I mean, Alex Shelley walking out on his team, is that a little bit of a heel turn to cue up Josh Alexander to take that title back?
It's certainly there. There's been some frustration from Shelley. I think, to me, the money feud before Shelley leaves and not leaves, but before he drops the championship would be against Chris Sabin. And maybe that's the in-between here where you have a pretty much brother versus brother. They're not brothers, but they might as well be.
Machine Guns clash.
It would be fantastic to see. I would love to see both of them go at it for the championship. And then right now you have Maclin and Alexander kind of feuding right here. And I think, they got to build towards Bound for Glory. We have the 2-night tapings happening tonight. We're going to see some of the spoilers, but they're going to start building and see the direction of where they're going to be at the top of the card. So, I think seeing what they're going to be doing with Impact is fascinating. They have the UK tour coming up in October. They're hotter than ever, man. I know everyone was kind of focused. The wrestling world was laser focused on All In, but if you're not watching Impact, like I said, it's so consistent and so fantastic. Make sure you guys check it out. If not, just watch Brace for Impact and we'll keep you up to date. In the other title matches, Trinity retained her title with submission over Deonna Purrazzo in the main event. We have the Digital Media Championship. Kenny King defeated Johnny Swinger to retain, and then NK Ultra Slamovich and Killer Kelly retained in a 4-way for the Knockouts Tag Team Championship. I thought for sure, and Colt and I will talk about this, Johnny Swinger should have gotten the win with the Digital Media Championship, but wasn't to be, unfortunately.
Yeah, and another piece of news, I think it just dropped today. They announced that Jordan Grace is coming back.
Bound for Glory.
Yeah.
Well, we'll jump ahead to that story too with Impact. Staying with the Impact, Will Ospreay is going to make his return to Impact at Bound for Glory. So hours after he defeated Chris Jericho, they announced that he's going to be making his run in October to Impact, and that's going to be in Chicago. So October 21st, Impact made the announcement with the conclusion of Sunday's Emergence. They showed that Will Ospreay is going to be there. We saw him kind of making an impact here during the AEW promo against Chris Jericho, saying that he's going to be a free agent only 6 months. He's expecting to make millions on his next deal. Maybe this is a taste in Impact to see, show people what he's got. And he's just trying his best to add to his resume, but he's only been in Impact briefly. Like people probably forget he was even there back in 2016. He's a completely different wrestler now. So it's been 7 years since he's been there. He's 5 matches over the course of 3 days when they were touring UK. So he was in a King of the Mountain match, and then he was also wrestling for the tag titles. Eric Young was the champion, but he is a completely different wrestler. I can't wait to see this iteration of Will Ospreay on this Impact stage, mixing up with the roster. And I'm not saying he's going to take a deal and Impact can ever secure him as signing him, but I wonder what could be, man. That'd be a lot of fun to see him mix up with those guys.
It'd be incredible. I think there's a lot of people in that roster that would burn it up with him in the ring. It's fun to see him, locked in for Bound for Glory. That'll be great. I love watching him kind of dip into all of these companies. It's a shame he can't dip into WWE like that. But I think if I'm a betting man, I think that 81,000 people watching you come out, I think that was Tony kind of whispering in Ospreay's ear, like, this is what we can give you.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think he's all elite. I think Tony opens the pocketbook up for him, but damn, it would be cool to see him mix it up with Josh Alexander. Alex Shelley and Ospreay would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and even though it's on pause right now, we know there's a working relationship between Impact and AEW. We've seen it before, obviously. Right. Christian, Kenny Omega, the list goes on. So it wouldn't shock me that he'd have the opportunity, because I would love to see a 3-promotion show between Impact, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and AEW. I think that's more likely than people give it credit for, to do a super show, maybe overseas, do it in Japan, in Cork and Hall, or, do it in the Tokyo Dome. I think that's a big enough. We saw them sell out Wembley on AEW alone. Imagine what they could do with 3 promotions at the Tokyo Dome. So I think it has some legs here, but we'll see what happens in October, who they match them up with. Maybe we'll get some clarity on during the tapings that happen this week. But we also have some WWE news. WWE and the NFL are partnering together for the first time ever licensing agreement between the two companies. So it was announced on Monday that WWE and the NFL are in a multi-year license deal to sell, quote, NFL-inspired WWE legacy belts featuring the official colors and brandings of NFL teams. So this became news here because conspicuous by their absence was the Jacksonville Jaguars, where they weren't on there. The only team out of the 31 currently out of 32, the only 31 were available. But there was a clarification by Fanatics. Fanatics support tweeted that the Jacksonville Jaguars inspired title belts aren't currently available because they're sold out. So
sure.
So we'll see what happens. But
out of all the teams, those are sold out. Like come on, guys. Yeah.
So yeah, the line, if you guys are looking to pick up the championship belts, this is, kind of in vogue what they do.
Who is spending $550 on these belts? Who out there does that?
I don't know, man, but good. And they're not, honestly, I think the NFL logos are cool, but like the titles are pretty ugly too. But we've seen people buy the other championships that are just whatever. We see some of the special edition titles that cost $800 on WWE Shop, and people are showing them at shows with them.
I love the NFL. I'm a big NFL fan, but this is just corny. to me. Like I don't want my foosball and my wrestling, fraternizing. I like them. When I want to watch football, I want to watch football. Stuff like these cross promotional things, although a good business move, I get it.
Yeah.
Just something that doesn't interest me at all.
Stay on the WWE. We have John Cena making an extended return to WWE television. So just today, they announced that Cena will be appearing on 8 SmackDown episodes during September and October. Mm-hmm. In addition to the one date he was already confirmed for, Cena will be appearing on 7 straight SmackDowns from September 14th through October 27th. So we have a list throughout of the cities he's going to be visiting. These are SmackDowns. Maybe he's going to have an extended program with somebody. You could look at it. 8 episodes is 2 months worth of programming that you can have a payoff.
Who could it be?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go. I would like to see him work with Grayson Waller. I think they tried that with Austin Theory, but Grayson Waller and John Cena, to me, that there's a little bit of a rub that Cena has left to give, and I think it could be to Grayson Waller.
Yeah, I'm with you. Grayson, I mean, if Cody's looking for somebody to keep him busy for a couple months, but I just don't see
that'd be
sense.
Fun as hell, actually.
It'd be fun. I don't know how they could make it make sense with both of them being fan favorites. I don't know.
And on SmackDown, mostly Cody's been on Raw, but they can definitely make that happen. But it would be fun. Cena and Cody has a lot of weight to it if you make it feel special.
Yeah.
So we talked about the AEW press conference that Tony Khan was talking about. He mentioned a whole bunch of stuff, but he revealed during the media scrum that AEW will hold a pay-per-view on Sunday, October 1st in Seattle titled Wrestle Dream. So this will be 1 year to the anniversary of Inoki's passing. That is Antonio Inoki. And Tony Khan spoke about not knowing Antonio Inoki, but referencing the weight that he has on the wrestling industry. This is where he was talking about wanting to pay tribute to what he has given to the business. And we have this another pay-per-view. We talked about WBD wanting to expand the portfolio of AEW's pay-per-view offerings. This is just another one in October. Open up your wallets, wrestling fans. Wrestle Dream is sure to be an absolute blast. Seems like, how could you in an Inoki anniversary show a tribute without New Japan Pro Wrestling? So this feels like it's going to have a flavor of New Japan Pro Wrestling in Seattle.
Yeah, he called him wrestling's greatest dreamer in the press conference. And I just want a little bit of clarity in this, because I feel like I've seen I listened to the press conference, but I've seen like a lot of news taking the press conference and saying that this was going to be almost like another Forbidden Door, where I thought Tony was a little bullish on that when he was asked at the press conference about New Japan. He made it seem like, yeah, they could be involved, but it didn't seem like this was going to be a joint promotion. Forbidden Door, both company names are at the top. It seemed, the way I took it was, we would like to get some of those guys on the card, but this isn't going to be like a co-promotion of New Japan and AEW. This is an AEW show, is how I took it, with maybe some Okadas and Tanahashi's coming over. So I'm really interested to see. I get it's a tribute show. Does that mean this is kind of a novelty show like Forbidden Door, where it's one-off matches, or is this going to play directly into the week-to-week Dynamite Collision storytelling? There's a lot to be kind of uncovered here, but I'm not against it. I kind of enjoy, I love the name Wrestle Dream, pulling from history. I think this could be fun. I mean, it takes their annual pay-per-view up to 7, which is, stop there, guys. That's all we need. Stop at 7. Any more than 7, I'm going to really start having an issue.
Yeah, I think you're dead on with. I don't think this will be another Forbidden Door. This will be the opportunity to feature New Japan talent, but this is an AEW vehicle through and through. This is going to be them riding to this. And the other thing you got to consider is that we're fresh off of, this is the go home this week for All Out, but they're a month away from this show. It's going to be September, next week. We're going to be watching events this weekend in the beginning of September, and that's less than a month. So when AEW takes the air in for All Out in Chicago, they're less than a month away from Wrestle Dream. So I really hope that they kind of expedite the build. Let's get it going immediately the night after, on Wednesday night following All Out. Let's start building towards Wrestle Dream. I want to see the graphic. Yep. I want programs set in place. Let's do it, because I don't like them crammed at the end. Does it work? Yeah, All In kind of worked here. They built it because of the MJF and Adam Cole story. But how good would it be if you continually packed in these shows with 4 weeks of just amazing build. It'd be amazing if you did what you did on Wednesday and Saturday all month long.
Well, that's what me and Hawk were talking about last night after All In. We were just kind of hanging out, and I was saying the only not the only positive, but one of the big positives I can take from this is if there's more pay-per-views that you have to promote and get people to shell out $50 for, hopefully it gets them to ramp up their story, because dude, some of that stretch in between Double or Nothing and All Out, and some of that stretch between Full Gear and Revolution, sometimes they're coasting with no story. Usually we all talk about how the best Dynamite episodes are 2 to 4 weeks out from a pay-per-view, and sometimes it's 1 week out, 2 weeks out. So maybe if they had a little more big shows in there to keep them honest, to keep them driving that story event to event, it could kind of focus their week-to-week storytelling a little better.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we're going to see kind of him be Tony Khan being tested on this build to Wrestle Dream, because it's going to take a lot to shape this card out. You're not going to get people to buy pay-per-view less than a month apart, or 3 pay-per-views in less than the span of 1 month without extensive build. So we'll continue to see that. So WWE has recently revealed the full field of 8 wrestlers for the NXT Global Heritage Invitational. So we're going to see this take hold on NXT. This feels like the format of the G1. And I kind of like this stuff where we're going to have WWE having
Is this
guys
for the Heritage Cup?
What was that?
Is this for the Heritage Cup?
The Global Heritage Invitational. It seems like it is for the Heritage Cup. Yes.
Okay.
So they're going to face Noam Dar for the NXT Heritage Cup at No Mercy on Saturday, September 30th. So it's the #1 contendership, which is similar to the G1, where you go on to face the champion at Wrestle Kingdom.
Shit, dude, when they did the Mae Young Classic and the Cruiserweight Classic, those tournaments were incredible.
Yeah, we got some names here. Tyler Bate, Joe Coffey. We got Butch, Duke Hudson, Charlie Dempsey, Nathan Frazier. We have different groups. So we're going to see kind of the tournament rules going like this. It's going to be 2 groups of 4 wrestlers in each group in a round-robin style tournament. Matches will have a 12-minute time limit. Pinfall and submission victories are worth 2 points. A draw will earn each wrestler 1 point. And the winner of Group A faces the winner of Group B on Tuesday, September 26th. And the winner of that match will challenge Noam Dar for the Heritage Cup on Saturday, September 30th at NXT No Mercy. So this is the G1, but smaller scale. Not 4 groups, it's 2.
If I'm throwing my wish list in there, I want the final 2 competitors to be Tyler Bate and Nathan Frazier. That would be an incredible
I would love Butch
match
in there, though. Pete Dunne, man. I would love Pete Dunne.
Pete Dunne's a beast. Pete Dunne's a beast.
Tyler Bate, though, is so good. I think he could do a
so
lot with that. And our final news in the quick hitters of EC3 has ended the reign of Tyrus. He's the new NWA World Heavyweight Champion. This happened at the NWA's 75th anniversary show, Night 2, in a bull rope match where Tyrus will be forced to retire if he lost. So feeds 2 masters. Tyrus is retiring. Probably not. Wrestling's like that.
Please,
EC3 is our champion.
Please adhere to the gimmick step. Please, God. I mean, hopefully this is, I'm not the biggest EC3 fan, but hopefully he's comparable. He did great stuff in TNA. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction. Maybe we get an EC3 Matt Cardona situation going on. Who knows?
So this ends Tyrus's 289-day reign as champion after he defeated Trevor Murdoch and Matt Cardona in a 3-way with the title at November's Hard Times 3 event. We also had some other title changes during this. 3 others changed hands. We had Kenzie Page defeating Camille in the semi-main event to win the NWA Women's World Championship.
Wow,
which
that's a shocker.
Camille's 813-day reign with the championship. That is a huge, huge win for Kenzie Page.
I think she took that title. I think Camille took that title off of Thunder Rosa. That's how long ago
as well.
it was.
Yeah, 813 days is a long reign. That's WWE rewriting the record books long.
Wow.
And we also have Paige's pretty empowered stablemates. Kylie Page and Ella Envy defeated M95's Maddie Rankowski and Missa Kate early in the evening to capture the NWA World Women's Tag Team Championship in another title change. So we also had the pre-show. Talis and Daisy Kill defeated the Country Gentlemen's Anthony Andrews and AJ Kazanza to win the NWA United States Tag Team Championships as well. So a lot going on in NWA. I know a lot of people aren't paying attention. They're down on it, but maybe this is an upward swing getting the championship off Tyrus and that stigma, whether you like Tyrus or not, whether you like EC3 or not, at least it's some buzz, man. There's some, reshuffling the cards at the very least to get people watching NWA.
A step in the right direction, man. We have not covered NWA on Wrestling Tonight in a very long time. I like talking NWA, but you got to give me stuff to talk about, man. Tyrus wasn't doing it.
Yep. So we're going to move right into the week ahead because Uncle Dave is still in the United Kingdom on his on his All In trip. So we're going to get back to Dave next week, but let's get to the week ahead.
The week ahead.
All right, so we have a jam-packed week of wrestling ahead, starting with Monday night tonight. We have a Falls Count Anywhere match, Becky Lynch versus Zoe Stark, Chad Cable versus Ludwig Kaiser. The New Day are in action, Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods versus the Viking Raiders, and we're going to get Bronson Reed versus Tommaso Ciampa. So some decent matches on Raw, building towards Payback. Not sure exactly. I mean, maybe Trish Stratus plays a part of the Zoe Stark match. Everything else is kind of set in stone. I mean, doesn't leave you that inspired that they're going to pitch any sort of huge angle going into Payback this weekend.
No, the thing that really sticks out to me about Raw this week is Chad Gable and his program against Imperium right now. And there's a big, I am the biggest Gunther fan, Walter to me, but there would be something very cool about Triple H pulling the trigger on having Chad Gable dethrone that guy. It would be cool. You would make a guy. Yeah,
we're asking them to make new stars, and that's making a new star that is cut from the same cloth as a Kurt Angle, a Brock Lesnar. Those guys are you've shown that style of wrestling and that presentation. Same as Chad Gable. I know he's smaller, but it also just shows you that those guys can be taken seriously.
And he's entertaining. He's an entertainer, dude. He's hilarious.
And he took Gunther to the limit. He first one defeating him in months. I know it was a count out finish, but it still was a huge win. And when was the last time we saw someone pop for a count out outside of, when Lex Luger defeated Yokozuna at SummerSlam 93, where he won the count out and the confetti's coming down. It might as well have been that, but people were popping for it at least. And I think the rematch, it's inevitable. They're going to let him pass Honky Tonk Man. And then we're going to have Chad Gable as IC champion, rightfully so. I mean, he's going to hold that championship up with pride.
If you're not going to do it, just cut the guy loose, because Chad Gable in any other promotion, if he would go to Impact Wrestling, put the world title on him, in my 100%. Opinion.
I agree.
He's that level of entertaining, and he's that level of in-ring talent that I'm high on Gable. I hope they do that. I hope they honor the guy and give him the IC rub.
Yeah, once the Honky Tonk Man's reign is broken, give him a few more days, and then I think set him up for. I think Payback is when the record is broken, right? Isn't the date they circled? There's a little further past that.
Around then. I'm not sure on the specific.
So do it on a Raw, like right after that.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Why not?
Papa Raiden. We have the NXT is jam packed on Tuesday. We have a steel cage match, the Creed brothers versus the Dyad. So if the Creed brothers win, they are reinstated to NXT. We have the NXT Women's Championship No More Contenders match, Blair Davenport versus Gigi Dolan versus Kiana James versus Roxanne Perez. And we get some of those Global Heritage Invitational matches, Butch versus Charlie Dempsey, the first one. And we also get Nathan Frazier versus Joe Coffey, Eddie Thorpe versus Dijak, and we get Tyler Bate versus Dabo Kato. So the return of Dabo Kato, we haven't seen him in quite some time. Trying to get him started. Big guy with some size on him. They did like him. He was in Evolve for a bit. I think he was involved in the Raw Underground stuff, if I'm not mistaken. But NXT is kind of thriving, man. They've been kind of killing it the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, they're doing their own thing, man. They're finding their feet. They're finding their footing, especially with Judgment Day popping up here and there. They're getting some steam behind them.
And on Dynamite, we have one match announced, and I believe it's Orange Cassidy versus Pentagon Jr. for the International Championship. Winner goes on to face Moxley. I'm sure we're going to get more matches announced in the next couple of days, but they have a lot of building to do towards All Out, so maybe they're going to focus on shooting angles.
Yeah, it's going to be a very interesting card, because you got the Fallout and you got the go home. So we'll see how that goes.
On Impact on Thursday, we get the Emergence Fallout, figuring out what's going to happen at Bound for Glory in October, aside from Jordan Grace coming back and Will Ospreay coming back. What are they doing with the world title? Are they going to figure out, they're going to do in-between programs? It seems like we're going to get Alexander versus Macklin in some capacity. Is it going to be Alex Shelley versus Sabin? Are they going to put Alex Shelley versus somebody else? Who knows? The tapings are happening tonight in Toronto, so they're going to do back-to-back tapings for 2 weeks, so we're going to have spoilers out there. So if you're looking to read ahead, I'm sure you can find them, but check us out Thursday, Brace for Impact, where we talk about the matches. They split them up. So there's a list of, I think, 10 matches that are happening. I don't know which matches are happening first. So I didn't want to preview the card here, but stay tuned to Brace for Impact on Thursdays at 10:10 for Colton and I.
Brace for Impact. That's where you go for all your Impact needs.
And on Friday, we have SmackDown. We got John Cena returning to SmackDown, Jimmy Uso returning to confront the Bloodline, and Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar versus Austin Theory and Grayson Waller. So, SmackDown kind of picking up the pieces. This feels like it's a one-off from Payback. Like there's nothing going on this show that's like, oh, that's going to make you look forward to Payback. But I guess we'll see what happens.
Man, SmackDown sometimes feels like a ghost town when the Bloodline's not firing on that show.
And just a shout out to them. I know we said we're going to cover in the quick hitters, but I think we did a good job covering in the monologue to open the show. But SmackDown did such a good job of paying tribute to Bray Wyatt. And also, they referenced, they did pay tribute to Terry Funk with one match. I give him credit for it. It was not a hardcore match, but it was a WWE version of it. But yeah, I just liked what they did for, and also, at All In, we saw the House of Black pay tribute with the Fireflies and the Lantern.
I love Cody's promo about cowboys.
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk being a cowboy in pro wrestling. I love that.
The wrestling world is grieving, and it's going to take a while to get over this one. This hit really hard. They all hit hard. Eddie Guerrero, Owen Hart, Brian Pillman, the list goes on, but these guys are larger than life, and to watch them go, it's surreal. It's the legend of Bray Wyatt and Terry Funk will live forever, but it's hard to watch them go. And we're so invested in the personas on the screen that you feel like the person behind the character, and my heart breaks for his family, and it's horrible. I think as a fan base, we're all sitting here kind of picking up the pieces. That was a crazy, crazy week of pro wrestling alone in the ring, and then throw on top of the tragic news of Bray Wyatt and the passing of Terry Funk, which you mentioned is so different. The both of them are so different, but they're equally as heartbreaking, because it's just, you're watching someone that you watched on TV, whether it be for the kind of time we got Bray Wyatt, or Terry Funk feels like he was in your living room every single week for your whole life. And that's the other thing. So
one man at the end of his career, one man in the middle of his career. We lost both. Absolutely heartbreaking. Legends live forever though in this business. That's the good thing. Fans don't forget. We hold them up high. And just a quick shout out we didn't mention in All In. Shout out to the House of Black for honoring Bray.
Oh yeah.
They had the Fireflies come out on the Contron. It lit up Wembley, and Buddy was holding the lantern. They sent the lantern down. I thought that was a very nice touch. AEW didn't shy away, just like WWE didn't shy away when Brody passed away under AEW's banner. AEW giving a hats off to Bray Wyatt because he was such a big deal in the business, and to see all of his friends rally around him was very nice.
Absolutely, man. Well said.
But yeah, that's the show, guys. Next week's going to be crazy. We're going to be breaking down Payback. We're going to be breaking down All Out. Who knows what else we'll talk about? Ace, any quick plugs before we get out of here?
Make sure you guys watch Shad Nostalgia this Friday as we continue our drive through Saturday night's main events catalog, which has been fantastic. Thank you guys for the support.
Yeah, and as always, guys, theturnbuckletavern.com. Go there, check us out. We got shows every day of the week, either on Apple and Spotify or on YouTube. Please subscribe, leave some good comments, leave us a good review. Always goes a long way. Lets people find us, discover us. But until next Monday, when we wine and dine with you kings and queens, stay out of the alley and away from the pork and beans. God luck and good speed.
Reach for the sky, boy.